There is a quiet preference many people carry, but rarely admit. You do not hate people. You are not antisocial, broken, or incapable of enjoying life. You simply feel better when the world becomes quiet. While others seem energized by crowded rooms, loud conversations, and calendars filled with plans, something inside you relaxes when an event is canceled. The moment you close the door and return home, your shoulders drop, your breathing deepens, and you finally stop feeling required to respond. Perhaps you have wondered what that says about you. But the reason you prefer staying home may have less to do with your personality than you think. From the outside, this preference can look like avoidance, laziness, or a refusal to participate in life. From the inside, it feels completely different. It feels like relief. For the first time all day, you no longer have to perform, explain yourself, read the room, or remain emotionally available. At home, you are not disappearing from yourself. You are returning to yourself. So why does quiet feel so necessary? And why, for some people, does home feel less like a preference and more like a refuge? For many, loving home is not simply a personality trait. It is a pattern their nervous system learned. After long periods of pressure, the body can detect stress before the conscious mind does. When life repeatedly feels unpredictable or demanding, the nervous system adapts. At first, you may respond by working harder, staying busy, and forcing yourself to remain strong. But the body cannot remain activated forever. Eventually, it searches for another way to protect itself, and that strategy is often withdrawal. This does not always mean withdrawing because you fear the world. Sometimes withdrawal is simply a form of regulation. Home becomes the place where your system can finally exhale. The lighting is familiar, the sounds are predictable, and no one is waiting for an answer. Your thoughts slow down, your muscles soften, and your body gradually returns to a calmer state. This is more than comfort seeking. It is stabilization. Home feels restorative, not because the outside world is always dangerous, but because your body has learned to associate quiet with safety. This pattern rarely comes from one dramatic experience. More often, it develops through relentless pressure or relationships where you absorb more than you receive. Little by little, the world stops feeling neutral and begins feeling heavy. Then one evening, you come home and realize you are not simply tired, you are depleted. Your mind cannot organize another conversation, and the thought of repeating everything tomorrow feels overwhelming. So you begin choosing home more often. At first, you simply need rest. Over time, home can become the only place where you are not preparing for criticism, conflict, or expectations. You can genuinely like people and still lack the energy to be around them. After that capacity has been drained repeatedly, your body begins choosing safety over stimulation automatically. The problem begins when a temporary retreat becomes a life organized entirely around protection. This is also why introversion is so often misunderstood. Introverts are frequently described as shy, socially awkward, or uninterested in people. But introversion is not fundamentally about fearing interaction. It is about how energy is spent and restored. An introvert may enjoy a conversation and appear warm and engaged. The cost often arrives later as mental fog, physical heaviness, and a powerful need for silence. Home becomes a reset point where stimulation is low enough for the nervous system to recharge. Choosing home, in that case, is maintenance. For creators, home may become a quiet workshop where ideas have room to develop. But the same stillness can amplify doubt, encourage perfectionism, and leave ideas trapped in the mind. Creativity needs a rhythm, moving inward to gather ideas, then outward to express and shape them. Solitude works best when it remains a doorway, not a final destination. For other people, staying home has less to do with social energy and more to do with sensory overload. Crowded environments contain overlapping conversations, bright lights, constant movement, buzzing phones, and dozens of details competing for attention. Some nervous systems do not filter that input easily, so everything seems to arrive with similar intensity. The body must work harder to remain regulated, so irritation and fatigue appear quickly. Home offers familiar sounds, predictable surroundings, and the freedom to reduce stimulation. Someone can value connection while still needing quiet to feel balanced. Sensitivity may simply mean the nervous system notices more. Still, there is an important transition that often happens unnoticed. At first, staying home feels healing. You cancel plans and experience immediate relief. Silence clears your mind, and rest restores your energy. Then, something changes. You stop looking forward to going outside, not because you still need recovery, but because the outside world no longer creates curiosity. Invitations feel exhausting before they arrive. Life begins to feel distant, as if it is happening somewhere you no longer belong. This is where rest can become retreat. The comfort that once expanded your capacity begins narrowing your life. You may feel safe, but contained, quiet, but disconnected. Your days lose contrast, your thoughts repeat, and time passes without clear markers. This change is difficult to recognize because it resembles self-care. But peace is not supposed to eliminate movement. It should restore your ability to move. When solitude no longer leads back toward life, it can become isolation. What makes this pattern harder is shame. You see other people building careers, relationships, and active lives, then measure yourself against an invisible timeline. You think you should want more and should not feel so far behind. Soon, you stop seeing your behavior as an adaptation and begin treating it as a personal failure. The more you judge yourself, the more you withdraw. The more you withdraw, the louder that judgment becomes. But this pattern did not begin with weakness. At some point, pulling back reduced pressure. Staying small preserved energy. Quiet felt safer than conflict, disappointment, or overload. The shame arrived later, when a protective strategy remained active longer than necessary. Healing does not begin by forcing yourself to become outgoing, confident, or constantly productive. It begins by removing the blame and recognizing that the pattern once served a purpose. Once you understand it, you can begin changing it gently. Balance may start with small, intentional contact, a quiet walk instead of a packed event, one honest conversation instead of 10 shallow ones, or a little sunlight and movement without unnecessary pressure. The goal is not to become more social. It is to reintroduce gentle contact with life and help your nervous system learn that the world does not always demand more than it gives. Home can remain the place where you rest and reset. It simply stops being the only place where you feel safe. It becomes your base, not your boundary. You do not need to rebuild your life overnight. You only need enough movement to keep it from shrinking and enough connection to remember that safety can exist beyond your walls. You can love quiet and still move forward without becoming louder, busier, or more visible. Solitude gave you depth. It helped you listen to yourself and protected you when life became too demanding. That mattered. But you are also allowed to rest and re-enter, slowly and gently, in ways that respect your capacity. If this video gave language to something you have been carrying silently, remember that you are not alone. Many people live inside this pattern without fully understanding it. If you want to explore more hidden psychological patterns, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, share which part of quiet feels most familiar to you. I'll be reading.